I grew up in a very poor area, very working class and underclass really. From being a small child, I've been very familiar with what a drunk looks like. My dad, he died from alcoholism. His dad died from alcoholism. It runs on both sides of my family. My mum has had experience with it. Yeah, don't want to go into it too much, but basically I've grew up around alcoholics, and it's interesting when you compare me and my sister. You know, there's only a year and 9 months between us, so when you see the way that we've both sort of adapted to the situation and how we've kind of chosen to live our own lives as a result of what we've been through, I've kind of went one way and she's went the other. She enjoys a drink and it scares me. And for a long period of time, as it sort of was becoming an adult, I was very, very opposed to the idea of alcohol. I didn't like to be around anyone that drank, and it was almost like an irrational fear that I couldn't be around people that were drinking. I didn't like conversations about people's nights out, and they were like, "Oh, I was so drunk. Oh, it was so good." I saw it as me taking a moral stance when I was like, "How can you say that?" But it was obviously just because I'd seen what alcohol can do to people and do to families, and I kind of didn't. I just wanted to stay away from it. I didn't want the constant reminder, I suppose. Whereas my sister, she knew what it could do, but she just kind of went along with it, you know, and thinking that she's not an alcoholic and she can keep under control, and for now it is somewhat under control. So yeah, but a few years ago, I decided that I was going to go into counselling, to become a counsellor, and I'd done my training with an organisation that deals with alcoholics and addicts in general, and I really thought that that was where I was going to go in life. I was going to do that sort of work. But I remember the training, it was very intense and it was very emotionally draining, and I obviously had to deal with a lot of shit that I had as a result of the way that I had been brought up. And I realised coming near the end of the course that I hadn't resolved my own issues and I couldn't truly help other people at that point. So I left, and yeah, I think about it a lot, about going back and finishing. See, I just don't trust myself. I have such an addictive personality, and I don't know how much of that is hereditary or if I've just adopted coping mechanisms that I've seen from my family growing up, or I don't know what it is really, but I know that I could easily become an alcoholic, and so it's something that I want to keep an eye on closely for the rest of my life, because I don't want to end up the way my dad did. But yeah, I was gonna say about, because it's more just addiction in general, but I have a bit of an issue with drink, but it's not alcohol. And if you've watched me on YouTube or whatever for a while, then you probably know about Iron Brew. It's a Scottish fizzy drink, and it's loaded with sugar, and I drink a hell of a lot of it. And the reason I started drinking it was because of issues I had with my body image and dysphoria, really, but I didn't know it was dysphoria at the time. But basically, I used to starve myself, and I didn't eat. and that was because I didn't want hips, and I didn't want curves and stuff. So yeah, but when I was doing that, I ended up, I was really ill and I was fainting all the time. So instead of eating, I started drinking sugary stuff, iron brew, and it's turned into something that I'm finding really, really hard to get off of, and it's taken me 6 years to even see it as a valid addiction that I have. And I mean, part of me knows that it has always known that it's been a real thing, but I've been very embarrassed and don't want to come out with it, because this iron brew, it's just a drink, it's just sugar, it's not alcohol. And I worry that people think that if I say that it's a real thing and that I'm having a hard time with it, people think that I'm pathetic and that it's not a big deal and I just need to go over it. But yeah, I've got a real problem with it. And the thing with addiction is that there's the physical addiction that you have, but then there's also the emotional sort of side of it. For me, it's a comfort thing, it's security, it's safe, and that's the thing that I need help with. You know, you could lock me up in a room for however long it takes for the sugar to leave my system, and then I wouldn't be addicted anymore. And then I've tried doing it before. I've tried going cold turkey, and I've been really, really ill because of it. But obviously I could get over that, but it's the fact that it's an emotional crutch and it's a coping mechanism, and it's all very sort of deeply ingrained in lots of stuff, and I'm terrified of not having it. I don't know how to cope without it. So that's how it's kind of getting to the point now where I need to tell people that it's a problem and take it seriously, because it started really affecting my physical health. I'm really quite ill because of it, and it'll kill me, you know, eventually. Someone once said to me that they loved a drink too much to become an alcoholic, because if they became an alcoholic they would never be able to drink it again. I thought that was really clever. Feel free to take this conversation anywhere you want to take it. I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone's got to say on the matter, and I hope everyone's doing really well, and I'll see you later.
Hey everyone, it's Casper and Ghost, but she's down here sleeping. Alcoholism and addiction. Really good topic, Fionn. Really hard topic. I really like how Fionn started off with saying how he grew up economically, I guess you could say, or class-wise. The environment I grew up in was very poor. Everyone in my family drinks and smokes. Yeah, and I think about class a lot. Do people who grew up rich or upper working class or middle class or upper class, do you or did you experience addiction in your family? And could it have been similar at all? Because in my family, it was all out in the open. People hated each other, loved each other, stole from each other, fucked each other over, and were quite physically, verbally, psychologically abusive. And I think this was in part because of the drug addiction that is so apparent in my family, but also because of a real lack of education. Everyone in my family is on the dole, which is money from the government, and they're all still drug addicts, except for me, and now my mum, because she has seen how far I've come, or what I've done, and what I've had to do to get out of it, and because I really wanted her to stop, and I'm really glad she has, and I'm really, really proud of her. She has become sober after my whole lifetime of not, and she's also quit cigarettes at the same time, and I'm really proud of her. I really wonder if that's what addiction looks like in families that all were formally educated, that, you know, lived in nice houses, or maybe it was like that. Maybe everyone is the same, but yeah, I think that's an interesting topic in itself, class. But yeah, how class affects our addictions and our relationships. I was a pothead, which some people don't think is an addiction, but it is an addiction. If you're taking something every day and it's controlling your life, I would say you're addicted to it. I smoked weed from about 11 till 21, 22. And yeah, I was already drinking by 12, 13. That's what everyone did. The high school that I went to was really, really shit. And I feel really shit about having been a stoner. I really stunted my life. Like, it really wasn't good for me, and it made me not deal with or work on the things I experienced in my childhood and growing up. Addiction isn't just about us, it affects everyone around us, you know. All of my family, my cousins, my aunties, my uncle, my mum, my sister, all of them taking drugs really affected me. It's what I was looking forward to in life. What else was I gonna do? Everyone else was a high school dropout, everyone else just sold dope, got fucking blazed, and that's what I did. I dropped out of school, sold drugs, got high, and then got out of that after, as I said, 10 years, and it took a lot of work. If that hadn't been my environment growing up, would I have become that? Where do these addictions come from as well, you know? Like, these are deep questions. Capitalism, of course. I could talk about capitalism and patriarchy till the cows come home. That's definitely a huge reason I stopped drinking, at least. The weed smoking was really a huge battle to get through, but alcohol, once I travelled to Central Australia and was living out on Indigenous communities and saw that people out there, if you happen to be Aboriginal, are not allowed to read porn or drink alcohol, but I was, that really affected my decisions on drinking as a white person in Australia. I had no idea that was happening, and I think I was like 18 or 19 when I first went out to Central Australia. The fact that there are signs out there that Indigenous Australians are treated like they can't handle their booze and like it's a problem, when if you look at the rest of Australia, if you walk down Brunswick Street in Fitzroy on a Saturday night and look at all the fucking white dudes smashing each other, yelling at their girlfriends, you know, I would say Indigenous people don't have a problem with drink. People have a problem with drink. Our society is not doing much about that. So yeah, that's in part why I quit drinking. Class. How does class affect our addictions? And privilege and oppression. What does it look like to have an addiction based on your privileges and your oppression? I think that's all I want to talk about today. I don't know if I was very clear or anything, but yeah, I hope people have some other really awesome stuff to add to this and Also, like with Finn, how he said his addiction has shifted onto this sugar drink. Like, has people's addictions shifted? Have they managed to not be addicted to anything? Is addictive personalities something that people can identify with? Yeah, I hope other people comment and make video responses, because this is something that I don't think really gets talked about enough. And people are scared to talk about it. People don't want to offend people or pressure people to like not be addicts, or but I think it's really healthy to talk to each other about our experiences, and yeah, communicating is the key. See you all later.
Good girl. Come say hi. She's a beaut. These are grapes. Somebody's working on the railroad or something. I have to edit that out. I don't think that that alcoholism or addiction is picky when it comes to any working class or like type of person. You know, obviously when Casper was talking about the indigenous people, addiction is everywhere. It's in every class and race and culture. Some people are okay with it. I'm not okay with it. I drank and used for 10 years, just the way Casper did. I dropped out the same way. I struggled with addiction for a long time. My parents met in Alcoholics Anonymous. My dad is a very sick man. I don't know where he is at this point. Nobody in my family is good with drink. As Finn put it, nobody's good at drinking in my family. I think that when I get addicted to something, I get like tunnel vision about it. I sort of have this like, I need this, and this is what's gonna make me feel better at this moment. And like, even with cigarettes, if I'm craving a cigarette and like I start to roll one and it breaks or something, like that's so aggravating for me. Sometimes, and I'm gonna have to quit smoking for surgery coming up, and that's a scary thing because, you know, like when Finn was talking about the brew, once it leaves my system, I'll be alright. I know that I'm going to be having a lot of mood swings and probably headaches and maybe nausea and just like physical addiction stuff, you know, withdrawals. But the comfort that comes with it, the like routine that comes with it, that's a scary thing to let go of. And I think that goes with anything, you know. And it's true that people don't necessarily have a lot of awareness about addictive substances that aren't intoxicating. I don't know, like cigarettes aren't intoxicating, they calm your nerves, but you know, the way cigarettes calm my nerves could be the same way sugar calms someone else's nerves, or you know, working out can be addictive. Or I mean, I really think that anything can be addictive, and I don't think that it's pathetic. I think the sad thing about it is that it's not acknowledged, and so it can be a lot more difficult to recognize. You know, if you have a problem with alcohol and you're getting drunk and you're embarrassing yourself and hurting the people around you, then that's a lot easier to recognize than Iron Brew, really. But like, it can be bad for your health. You know, I'm not trying to get too much into that. That's sort of a personal thing for me because it's Finn and he's my buddy. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was Casper saying, like, where does addiction come from? You know, like, why do people get addicted? And that's been a question for a long time. You know, being in a program I've been in a program for almost 3 years now, and I've been to rehab. I went to rehab when I was 14 and when I was 17, and that's a question that has been around as long as addiction has been around. You know, is this physical or is this mental? Is this emotional? And I think it's both. You know, I don't think that it's just a crazy coincidence that my parents met in Alcoholics Anonymous, and that I'm an alcoholic. You know, I don't think it's purely coincidence that a lot of people in Casper's family have problems with addiction, and so does Casper, and the same thing with Finn and his dad and his family and his sister. You know, it's like, it's hard, like I think that it's more prevalent. I don't know. My ego likes to take over sometimes and say that I see more pain in the world, and so I'm more inclined to detach from that, you know, and I use substance to do that. But I think that, like I said, addiction doesn't discriminate. It's in every class, it's in every race, in every culture. But I do think it's both in some cases. Like, I have an addictive gene, I think. You know, that's not proven, but I think it's kind of obvious that I have an addictive gene, that when I black out, I can't stop. You know, most people, not most people, but a person without that gene, I would think that once they get drunk, they go, okay, I'm drunk. That was the goal here, to get drunk. Now I'm drunk, I can stop and be drunk. But for me, with any substance, it's like more and more and more and more and more. And even at the point where I'm unconscious, like blacked out, it's still more and more and more. But what got me to the point of wanting to detach, like, I didn't drink for fun. Like, yeah, sometimes I did, you know, but it's not exactly typical behavior for a 12-year-old to want to drink and use. You know, it's not normal for a teenager to get addicted to heroin. It's common, but it's not a sane behavior, you know? I don't know, this is, I'm the last video on this, so there can't really be a continued conversation about it, but maybe I'll go into it more next week about, like, the difference between, like, being physically addicted and being emotionally addicted. Because I think, you know, that's partly what Finn was getting at, but there's been a lot of different things going into this conversation. Like, it's a difficult thing to talk about because it's pretty complicated. And I think Casper, Finn, and I are sort of complicated people. We don't just go, this is this, period, you know. So if this made any sense at all, I will continue to try to make sense of it next week. So if you have any experience with addiction, if you have anything to say to this, you should write a comment or make a video response, and we will watch them, and I will carry this conversation into next week, I think. Sounds like a good plan. Yeah.
Let's go out back and plant a family tree.